Hello world, welcome to the Pocket Gamer podcast with your hosts, me, Brian Baglow, and our Duchess of Direct Consumer, Miss Peggy and Salz. Peggy, you've been off on your travels again. I'm getting a distinct sense of Scandinavia from you. Where have you been most recently?
Yes, PGC Helsinki, of course. It was a massive show. I just saw the newsletter come through today. Actually, we hit 1,300 plus as far as attendees. Massive show. Then, yes, D2C, thank you so much for that because that was a hot topic. It was surprising to see so many sessions and hear so many speakers talking about how they're going to take back control, right? It's all about commerce. It's all about going from interaction to transaction to everything in between. They want to take back their destiny. And they're looking to us here on the show, Brian, to do that as well, which is why we're going to stay with that trend. We're going to stay in that vibe, and we're going to talk to someone with an innovative approach who is also, I think, enabling gaming companies to do much, much more than just sell. But let's let him tell it to us himself. Our guest, Conor McLaughlin, VP of Revenue and Partnerships at Americas and EMEA at Aghanim.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Thank you for having me on.
An absolute pleasure. So before we dive into the sort of the weighty topics and all of the business and learning that I know that we're going to bring to our audience, Peggy pre-briefed me, obviously, and advised me to ask about your preference in pizza toppings. Most notably, I hear that you are pro-pineapple, to which I say, peace, brother, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, it was a big debate. It's something that I swore off, or it is a big debate. It's something that I swore off for many, many years, just primarily for lack of trying, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was introduced to it about 8 years ago, and I've never looked back. So it is hard to go to Italy. A lot of restaurateurs are not, big fans of mine. However, I'm standing strong, leading the front.
There is a time and a place. There's a time and a place. You know, the purists will tell you, unless it's Neapolitan, which is just San Marzano and bufala de mozzarella, it's not pizza, it's flatbread. But that's an entire episode all on its own. You know, so I am with you. It's like the time and the place. It might be Hawaii. I will fight for your right to have pineapple on top of your pizza. And I have been known myself.
I appreciate it, Brian. It's good to have another guy on the team. Yeah,
we have to stand together.
We have to stand together. Too true.
Conor, you have to come to Scotland. So not only do we very unashamedly have something called a munchie box, which is essentially a pizza box with a pizza in it that is then covered with pakora, chips, doner meat, sauces, salad, and so the pizza becomes a plate. But we are also the country that invented the pizza crunch, which is where you take a pizza, you fold it in half, you drop it in batter, and then you deep fry it. So we have no leg to stand on when it comes to this pizza purity, you know.
Okay, so we've just acquired an entire country for the cause.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Good.
Next big games event in Scotland, you're on the bill.
I'm on the first flight out.
You were also at Pocket Gamer Connect Helsinki. I was there too, right? It was like, as I said, like a boot camp for studios, talking about web shops, payments, platforms like yours, which I want to get to. So tell us a little bit more about Aghanim and also the key message that you shared at Helsinki. I'd love to hear that so that we can understand that top takeaway.
Yeah, so Aghanim is an organization that I joined not too long ago. I had been at Liftoff in in-app ads for a long time, helping publishers monetize. And I was looking for the next big idea in publisher monetization. Essentially, DTC is, I think, the biggest idea right now in mobile gaming in general. It's definitely the biggest revenue opportunity. I think that every single publisher in our current ecosystem should be using some sort of DTC strategy today, if not yesterday. When I first found Aghanim, I realized that it was ahead of its time. It was multidimensional in a market plagued by one-dimensional solutions. It's essentially a DTC publisher enablement platform. It's an audience engagement platform. If you were to compare it to anything that exists today, I think you would compare it to essentially a supersized web shop that leads with content first and is created by gamers for gamers, right? It's not a financial solution to kind of a gaming problem. So as soon as I kind of saw the idea, as soon as I saw the demo, I jumped on board within a few weeks. And now we're just looking to get the word out.
Yes, it's D2C, but it's more than that. Looks to me like you borrowed a very, very important page from conversational commerce, and engagement.
I mean, here's the deal. This is how web shops have existed for the past few years, right? And it's the reason why you haven't really heard that much about web shops in general, and why publishers specifically in the casual and hyper casual space have veered away from web shops in general. The reason is because it's heavy resource intensive. It's expensive, and there's a lot of friction points that limit it from being worthwhile, especially for publishers that index more towards advertising for monetization, right? So a lot of what web shops have catered, the type of client that web shops have catered for, publisher that web shops have catered for, is that hardcore gaming community that entirely indexes on IAP. Because if you can increase your profitability on 100% IAP by 5%, that's worthwhile. However, if you are a 10 to 20% IAP business, it doesn't really make sense. You're going to maybe add a new SDK, improve your CPMs, reduce, transfer over to bidding. There's a lot of things that you can do on the ad side, whilst also optimizing your IAP kind of business. Then there's Aghanim, and Aghanim is an out-of-the-box solution that essentially gives the publisher everything it needs to reduce overall friction, kind of eases the integration, is relatively low lift, and is powered by AI. Therefore, it's completely automated, right? And it basically hits every friction point that publishers have faced and essentially complained about for many, many years associated with that kind of one-dimensional web shop solution.
So you touched on a number of the friction points there, Conor, and I think you had told us it was lift resources, the cost, the expense, and then of course churn. Can you dive us a little deeper into that and tell us exactly how you're achieving this through Aghanim, through Games Hub?
100%. So the 4 friction points that we've established, and I want to kind of take a step back for a second. We were in stealth mode for a year and a half, right? The reason we were in stealth mode for a year and a half was because we were doing publisher recon. We were speaking to essentially every publisher within every category under the sun, getting advisors in to essentially come up with the 4 friction points as to why publishers have not engaged with web shops in the past. So the 4 friction points, like you said, Brian, are lift, right? Resources, churn, and performance. The first is lift. So how do you kind of, first of all, connect to kind of a web shop, right? And then what resources are associated once you connect and once you set that up and once you kind of have that eye-to-eye view between game and web shop, then there comes resources, right? So how do we develop a team to actually manage this? How do we extend marketing budget to this potentially third party that we're working with? Because essentially what you're doing is you are marketing to users who live in an app outside of an app with kind of influencer marketing, social media marketing, whatever marketing budget. It's very, very expensive to market to users who live in an app outside of an app. It's also hard to do, right? Because how do you get them? If they don't have a Discord, like you said, Brian, where are you finding these users? So there's all these different kind of techniques for finding these users. You have to get really, really creative. Then you get these users, then you send them to the web shop, right? And then there's churn. Once you send them to the web shop, who knows that they're actually going to engage with the web shop in general? So then there's churn. So it's building out a team. It's then spending tens to, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars per year, depending on the company, to market users outside of the game to get them to the web shop. Then there's churn, right? And then there's performance. So then the users get there, but how do you know that these users are high quality? How do you know that they're VIPs? How do you know that they're going to spend? What's the performance like? That's the problem. That's the problem we identified. That's the issue in the market, right? And there is not a solution to that. Every single company that's out there in the same space that we are, and we kind of consider ourselves to be in our own space because we're just not simply a web shop. This is a revolutionary idea that supercharges the web shop and takes and is audience first and publisher first, right? This web shop idea is a CFO's solution to a gaming problem. Ours is a gaming solution to a gaming problem, and I'll tell you how. We are content first. What that means is that we do not link users to the transaction flow. Per Apple and Google's compliance, linking users to the transaction flow out of the game, you still incur a 27% tax, right? You get a 30% tax on every in-app purchase. If you link users out to a web shop, some people are still doing that. Some companies are still doing that because you make 3% more. So you still get hit with 27% because guess what? You're linking them to the transaction flow. So take a step back for a second. Let's say we don't link them to the transaction flow. Let's say that we link them to content. Let's say we create an extension of your game, right? Let's say we're talking about kind of a Moonactive's Coin Master. Right? And for Moonactive, we put a website that is all content-based. Events, news, updates,
like
leaderboards.
Product page. I'm sorry to interrupt, Connor. It sounds like a product page.
Exactly. It's a one-stop shop, content-based solution that sends users to an extension of the app that is brand safe and on point with their current look and feel of their entire game. The reason why we're doing this at scale so quickly is that we have a partnership with OpenAI that creates the websites at scale within 30 seconds based on what's published by the publisher on like all across the web via kind of news updates, everything that they have published themselves. OpenAI takes, brings into a one-stop shop content delivery platform where you can link out users compliantly. And then guess what is on the left on the menu? There's a store. Now, the big question that we get all the time is, well, okay, you still have a churn problem, right? So you're linking users out to basically a one-stop shop content hub. And we're calling it a game hub, right? It's not a web shop. It's just not. We're calling it a game hub. We link out. Then what happens? Because then you just see churn. Well, that's friction point number 3, right? And we addressed friction point number 3 by incorporating a liveops technology in our game hub. Essentially, what you're able to do as a publisher is you're able to link users directly from your game to the game hub, and then based on player attributes, this player is above the level of 20, has an LTV that's above $200. Let's serve him a reward that is $200 discounted at 20%. So as soon as the user gets to content, and they start kind of moving around the content flow, we use liveops based on user data that we link via an API, a simple API connection. This is not SDK. Via a simple API connection, we serve them via our liveops and the data that we have on each user, custom tailored rewards 5 to 10 seconds after they get to the game hub. That allows them to maximize their chances to lead them down to the purchase flow. And as a result, we're seeing 14% of users transact off app on day 1 of going live with publishers. The average rate right now for web shops lifetime is 3 to 5% lifetime. We put a button in your game. We send users to a game hub. We use liveops to maximize their actual probability of heading to the transaction flow. And it's incentivizing for the publisher because the publisher doesn't get taxed at 27% or 30%. It's an audience engagement platform that matches the exact look and feel of their app. And then once the user gets there, they're being served rewards that are far more affordable because of how much margin the publisher is taking than they would ever get in the app. And then we use loyalty programs and we give them loyalty points like a Hyatt or like a Delta, right? Loyalty points to keep them coming back.
Imagine this is like, oh, this is great, replace everything. But that's also quite a lot of heavy lifting as well. So you're using what they have and you're customizing it and you're adding on top of it, but you're not replacing it.
Yeah, this is an extension of your app. It's giving, the whole purpose here is to give power back into the hands of the developer successfully and impactfully. Where web shops have fallen short is they haven't been able to do that. If you look at the profitability rates and the transaction rates and the performance rates of web shops, it's all below 10%, right? It just is. Right now, we're doing 14% off app on day one. In the first 3 to 6 months, our goal is to get you to 55% of transactions off app within those 3 to 6 months. And if we get 55% of transactions off app within the first 3 to 6 months, you're looking at an 121% increase on IAP revenue within 6 months. So this is, when I say at the beginning of this conversation, when I say this is the biggest opportunity in mobile gaming, it is. There's no debate about that.
And the win here, just to be very clear, is really, it is a workaround around the 30%. So, all value is good value because anything you can get is a win there. And that's what it is. You're basically a workaround around that.
Think about it this way. Some publishers say to us, listen, we love the liveops tool. We love everything about this. But you know what we really love? We love that this is a one-stop shop place for our users to engage with our brand outside of the gameplay. How do you engage with your users if you don't have a Discord, right? If you're hyper casual or you're something more in casual and you don't have like one of those Discord pages, or you don't really have a Twitter presence, or you're an up and coming publisher that just hasn't developed that conversation yet. Where do you take let's say a user says on the App Store, listen, this most recent version of your app was or of your game was buggy, right? We didn't like this version. We think there's too many ads. We think there's, whatever. They have some sort of complaint. You know what you can do in this Game Hub? You can say, hey, user, we just updated to version 8.5 as a direct result of your feedback to us bettering ourselves and bettering the experience of our users. Here's what we did for you. We heard you. There is a prime opportunity just outside of just taking advantage of the, 27%. There is a prime opportunity in this idea in giving brands back the ability to have a conversation with users outside of just users playing the game. How does a user engage with a Quali or a Voodoo or a King? How do they engage with that brand? This gives you the opportunity. This gives the publishers the opportunity to create loyalty between user and brand. And then at the same time, circumvent the 27% and take every single dollar on the table that's available from a monetization perspective.
So let me pick up on that, Conor, because we've talked an awful lot about the revenue. You've got some incredibly impressive numbers, but this whole notion of ongoing player engagement, outside the sort of the direct conversation, pulling that power back in, how else are you addressing this in terms of the developers and publishers and building that ongoing relationship?
Yeah, so we have a ton of features. We can also get as customized as you like. The reason is because a lot of what we're doing is AI focused. So we're going to be coming out over the coming months with a lot more AI self-serve based kind of products and techniques for publishers to essentially say, hey, listen, I don't want to do this kind of more manual live ops kind of activity. I would and I don't want Aghanim to do it either. I don't want the managers at Aghanim to do it either. What if AI could recommend what reward to serve what user at what time to maximize the probability of getting them to the transaction flow and make it incentivizing enough for that user to actually enjoy the reward that they're being given, right? So stay tuned for stuff like that. But we have a lot of features that are currently out. So we have news, right? So audiences can engage with news that's published by the publisher. We can also run point on developing that news and kind of scraping the internet for all the news that's either published or that they would like us to talk about. There's events. So here are some in-app or in-game events that we would like users to get really excited about that are coming down the pipeline in the next couple of months. Here are the updates that we are making on the game. Please update now. Here's a reminder to update now so that users can take advantage of new developments in game. right? There are achievements. So if users come on a regular basis, they can unlock achievements, and there are loyalty programs. So on every purchase, you actually get points on every purchase so that you can come back and use those points to claim further rewards. There are YouTube videos. We make it as fun as possible. We want to gamify, essentially. It goes back to what I said before. This is not a CFO solution to a gaming problem. This is gaming experts powered by gaming advisors who are in this space, and it's a solution by gamers for gamers.
So you mentioned up front that web stores are not appropriate for everybody. You know, it's only the bigger publishers, it's the IP first, and it's a certain type of company. Are you finding now that this is far more relevant to a much broader spread? Would you say this is kind of a one-size-fits-all solution for almost everyone who's publishing games out there now?
Yes, this is an out-of-the-box solution that works for every publisher out right now. And going back to my earlier point, Brian, here's another thing, a little side note. We encourage every publisher to test. You know, there are some companies out there that say, listen, you know, you should go with our solution over this solution because you know, once you go with one solution, you can't go with the other solution. We're saying test. That's one piece of advice that I give to every publisher. This, again, is the biggest opportunity in mobile gaming right now by 10x more. And that's an arbitrary number, but I'm just saying a lot, right? So, and every single publisher right now should be testing DTC yesterday because the money is on the table. If you're following any of the laws, you know, either from the U.S. Supreme Court, the Digital Market Act, all of the stuff that's happening with Google and Epic Games, if anything, this industry is becoming a lot less stringent. And the future of DTC is developer and publisher first. Just because we're first to market in terms of being the most advanced, out of the box kind of holistic solution for every publisher does not mean that we will always be the only one in the market. Right? This is a gold rush. This is a gold rush. And every publisher should be taking advantage yesterday of how many dollars they're leaving on the table every day by not acting on kind of a DTC strategy.
So the numbers are impressive. And we're going to have people in the audience, you know, Brian, they're going to be saying, yeah, for everyone, and I can get my 27% back. How can that be a bad thing? So they're going to have to wonder about the question I'm going to pose now, which is, how do you do it? i.e., what is your business model?
We create a channel and a flow and a current for the user to head directly to the transaction flow, where at the end, they get there and they continue to come back seamlessly, right? So the first thing you do as a publisher, because we're able to link out, because we link out to content, and because we're content first, we're an audience engagement kind of game extension platform is really what we are. And then we have a shop on the side, right? But because the way that it works is you as a publisher put a button that's highly visible in your game, right? That's the only piece of development work that you have to do. So you put a button in your game and you say, explore more content, or explore kind of our news hub. You know, some publishers are just doing like game hub, right? So game name hub. Right? And they just get users to and they just put it in a highly visible spot. Users who come back every day and who are highly engaged with your games will click it. And we have a lot of strategies for ensuring that button is clicked, right? So you put that in the game. The user clicks that button. They go directly, automatically signed in via the API connection. No need to re-sign in. Automatically signed in via your game ID to the Game Hub. Then you land on the Game Hub. And on the Game Hub, you landed news or events or leaderboards or updates, whatever kind of content, or YouTube videos or like how-to videos, whatever you want, right? And then the user travels for about 5-10 seconds. And we have, based on user data and based on our liveops program that has every type of user, typically an advertising viewer, right? Typically an IAP buyer, right? Typically someone who buys once every maybe 3 to 6 months. So not really an IAP buyer, but like a heavy buyer, but also not just an ad viewer. And we have different templates to target every single type of user segment. And then when that user comes in with that specific trait, they get served a reward at a specified discount that's associated with their specific user profile to maximize the chances of them converting to purchase, because you want to serve them the best reward possible. So user clicks button, User seamlessly gets the game hub. User gets served a reward that's tailored exactly to them. And therefore, our 14% transaction rates are occurring, within that first day.
That is quite a savings. There's a lot to be said for that, Brian.
Bear in mind, this is about your net revenue. This is not about what you could make on top of your net revenue. This is just bringing down distribution costs. Right now, you have a platform distribution cost of 30%. If we bring that down to a blended 10%, by getting 90% of your transaction power, which could, by the way, be 5% of your users or 0.5% of your users. In a lot of cases, 0.5% of users make up 90% of IP. So if you get these 0.5% of users, remember, it's transaction power, it's not users. If you get 0.5% of users, which is 90% of transaction power, over to the game hub, at 90% of transaction power, you are making 200% in net revenue.
I'm going to throw an additional question at you, Conor, if I may, which is, so when the users are in the Games Hub, it's like, are there additional aspects that you either have, you're looking at, which allow you to sort of further segment them, gather more data, and kind of push them back into the game in a slightly different way? So you're actually giving the developer, the publisher, a better idea of how the user is interacting with your service, with GameHub.
We have a publisher dashboard that basically reports on a lot of the user activity so that publishers can design and reiterate on the liveops to make it as powerful as possible. Watch this space for an AI kind of development on that. But for now, yes, publishers get all of the reporting so that they can reiterate from a dashboard perspective. Also, it's very important to note that users obviously don't see any of the live op stuff, right? That's publisher facing. A user gets to the Game Hub, and we want to make the experience as kind of pleasant and kind of exactly like the game as possible. The idea here is not only put the power in the hands of the developer, right? Not only give them back the power, but also create a one-stop shop that is exactly like what they saw when they created the game.
So really that seamless experience, that is where OpenAI, that partnership comes in, and you're getting the look and feel and everything right because you've basically, ingested it, digested it, and given me a new version of what will be that transition, that link between being in my game and going over to my presence, I'll call it, with the news, with the stuff, with the rewards, all the rest of it.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. In terms of filling it with content, OpenAI, AI does that as well. It fills it with all the content. This is just like if you want more content or different content or want to customize it. There are publishers out there that just say, this is great. Let's set it up. It takes 3 to 8 hours of one developer's time. And then maybe 2 days of QA or thinking of new ideas to create kind of a leaderboard or something else that's specific to this Game Hub. But if you just wanted to kind of use it as is, as an out of the box solution and just see how it performs, we can go live in a day.
Does this, for publishers, does this sit within UA, marketing, community management? Is it the liveops team? You've got so much in there. As a developer, as a studio, where are you seeing a lot of people seating this? This,
Brian, is I would say kind of the thing that we're working out right now, right? It's very, very hard to educate people about an invention, right? Especially about an invention that works. Because you need reliability, you need credibility, right? You need to be able to explain it in a really simple way. This is not a web shop. It's an invention. It's completely new. So when you're dealing with something that's revolutionary, you have to talk, you're right. You have to talk to a CPO, a CEO, a CBDO, a COO. Some publishers, they say, we'll assign this as a project to a producer, right? Other publishers say, well, this is great because we want to use this net revenue increase that's quite dramatic for user acquisition so that we can compete more heavily with our competitors and rise up the ranks of the App Store. So maybe a UA specialist will kind of manage the revenue there. Some people put in a finance person. It's a low-lift project, but we don't require a team. Therefore, the publisher kind of has to imagine who they'll put as kind of the owner of it because it doesn't require a team.
The whole time you're explaining this, I'm just thinking one thing, Connor. I'm just thinking, you got the backing of major VCs, Bessemer Venture Partners, A16Z, where everybody, right? Probably they're thinking what I'm thinking just in the back of my head right now, coming from having done a lot in mobile and marketing and digital content companies. And it's like, you know what? It may start with games, but it doesn't have to end there. Everybody who's selling something, every content company, The Economist could use something like this.
Exactly. I think the point there that's really that kind of point 72, Bessemer, A16Z, like you mentioned, that they see and the value that they see is this is a multi-dimensional solution to a previously crowded one-dimensional kind of market attitude, right? I mean, like the market has looked at this problem one-dimensionally. We're looking at it multi-dimensionally. And I think that our, point 72, Bessemer, A16Z, and all of our investors and the publishers that we're working with, the publishers that we're onboarding at a very quick rate, are kind of seeing like, okay, this is where it's going. Let's jump on board now. And like I said at the beginning, it's the publishers who are jumping on board first that are winning the race.
I mean, this is the thing, Connor, and to pick up on Peggy's point, it's as you said at the top of the show, it's that long-term engagement, it's ownership of, in this case, your player, but your listener, your consumer, your fan. And I think that for me is one of the biggest things. It's not just direct to consumer, it's building in that credibility. On the podcast, we speak to so many people who tell us it's all about the player, it's all about your credibility, it's all about your reliability and that long-term relationship. So I can absolutely see how this would work. Start with games, but then move out into the wider world.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, Brian, like we wouldn't have been able to create this solution if we were not a fan of games. There just hasn't been a solution for this game specific problem, right? It's just like these are finance solutions to a game specific problem. Where's the game solution? And it comes from fans. And I think that's kind of, and that's the backbone that we built this solution on. And that's why it's resonating so well with the publishers in the market.
And again, it makes perfect sense. When you look at games, the passion, the enthusiasm, the spending that's there, it's absolutely one of sort of the market leaders. But the transformative power of games tech and that games experience has such a broad application. I gave a talk to the JP Morgan team here in Scotland a couple of months back called Design for Joy. We build experiences that people want to spend hundreds, thousands of hours in. So why do your banking apps suck so much? Why can't you just try to make people happy? Functionality starts with the word fun, which is not, strangely, a four-letter word.
Right.
I might steal that.
Use it with my blessing.
So a last question to you before we're wrapping up. I'm just curious. You've been in stealth for a year, but you've been in the industry for over a decade. We share a little bit of legacy and a little bit of background also in Liftoff, where I was consulting for 8 years. So you've been there, I've been there, but you have been connecting with indie developers in this stealth mode. You said talking to them, doing your research. What is the one piece of advice or the biggest piece of advice you'd give to them if they're looking to stand out in today's market?
I think take risks, right? Test everything. We are in a market right now that is shifting rapidly, and the companies that are coming out that are on really the forefront of the next stage in monetization. And this is the backbone point of this kind of podcast. It's the publishers who are acting with agility that are winning. And so be agile, right? Test, trust the product, be quick to market, go be ahead of your competitors, and you'll continue to win.
Connor, this has been fantastic. I'm sure we could talk to you for another hour at least, and we're just scratching the surface. So, we may well have to ask you back in 6 or 12 months and you can tell us how you're taking over the world. But before we let you go, there are a couple of questions that we ask all of our guests that brings it right back to what's important to everybody listening to this podcast, which is the games. So 2 questions. What are you playing right now? What's obsessing you? What's on your phone at the moment? And then secondly, favourite game of all time ever?
Okay, those are very good questions. What I'm playing right now and what I've been playing for, which is really my favorite game at the moment, is Super Plays Dice Dreams. Obviously, they've been all over the news recently. I love that game. And then in terms of my favorite of all time, I'm a huge, I mean, the people, every Englishman is going and woman is going to destroy me for this, but I'm a huge soccer fan. And so I love first touch games is Dream League Soccer. Huge fan. I mean, it hasn't been around for my lifetime, unfortunately. I had Score Hero before, but I love Dream League Soccer. I love what they've done with it.
Fantastic. And you know what? There are no wrong answers. And given the previous comments about pineapple, I think we're beyond the sort of the comfort zone right now.
Good. Well, we'll have to celebrate in person with
Absolutely, Conor.
plentiful amounts of pineapple and cheese. Yeah.
When he takes over the world, he can invite us out, Brian.
Yes,
That's true. We'll
let's do it.
expect
Dinner on
an
me.
invitation. We'll come to your island, and your personal chef can
Oh, stop. Yeah,
do
yeah,
something.
yeah. I think we're still
something
a far
delicious.
ways away from there. But thank you. That sounds good.
Okay. Sadly, we are going to have to call it out. Conor, thank you so much. It has been enlightening, interesting, valuable, and a whole lot of fun. So the very best of luck for the future, and hopefully we'll have you back to speak to you again soon.
Brian, Peggy, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Talk soon.
This show is all about how to do your job better, how to make an amazing game, how to market it, and you have a say. So if you have a story or know someone we need to shine a light on, then we would love to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. We want to reflect the reality of the mobile games market in all its wonderful complexity and strangeness. So if you have any suggestions for us, if you have any feedback for us, you can always get in touch. You can email us at podcast@pocketgamer.biz. You can find us on Twitter @PGBiz, and you can reach out to us through the pocketgamer.biz website. If you're interested in listening to all of our podcasts, you can find them at pocketgamer.biz/podcast, and we would love to hear your thoughts on future shows.
And we've got you covered on all the major platforms, so subscribe to the audio podcast, as Brian said. Look for us on YouTube. If you want to read it, hey, you can do that too, because we have a companion post for you as well on the pocketgamer.biz website.
Tune in again for the next edition of the pocketgamer.biz podcast, and we look forward to speaking to you in the near future.